What's going on, y'all? Chuck Nunface here. We got a Stitch Auto in very, very cool Arctic camo to take a look at today. So we're going to take a second look at this knife. I don't think I actually ever did a full review of the Stitch Auto, and I'm not going to do one here. I'm just going to talk about this a little bit. I do have a couple of these now, of the Auto Stitches, and yeah, we're just going to talk about it a little bit. So this, of course, is the Arctic camo, which I think looks super freaking cool. It's got an M390 blade, aluminum handles, nicely textured, stone washed hardware, a little on the shiny side. Same with the clip. This was made last year. So we're going to be looking at, what are we looking at? July of last year. No, not July. I'm reading everything upside down. April of last year. 2023, right? April 2020. Yeah, it's still last year. It's not 2025 yet as of the filming of this video. So yes. So it is about a year and a half old. And interestingly, I don't know particularly why, but the Arctic camo comes with this lanyard and bead, which I think is cool. I don't know what the bead's made of. If it's aluminum, if it's stainless, if it's titanium, I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure. Comment below if you know exactly what the bead is made of, but I am unsure. Quick bit of housekeeping. Subscribe if you're new, certainly would appreciate that. And subscribe if you regularly watch my content and are not subscribed. I certainly would appreciate that. It would help out the channel. I look at the analytics, and about 80% of the people who watch my content are not subscribed. So I would love to get that number down to like 50% in 2025. That's kind of my goal. I'd love to have only about half of the people who watch my videos not be subscribed in 2025. I think that's realistic, but we got to get that number down about 30%. So I certainly would appreciate it if you do watch my videos and you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. Appreciate that. So yeah, the Stitch 2024 was kind of the year that I really got into the Stitch, and I really had a renaissance with Microtech knives in general. I kind of got away from them for a couple years. Was really into like the Combat Trudon and a few of their other models. Not really so much the Ultratech or anything like that, even though I think it was the UTX 85 was my first experience years ago with Microtech. And then I got into the bigger ones, and then I don't know, I just kind of got out of them, and a lot of it was just because of the Chinese Microtech Reich knife collaborations. It's just something was just wholly unsavory about Microtech, always being kind of this proudly American company, or maybe not outwardly saying it, but at least never letting that perception that people had, not refuting it in any way, certainly not refuting it in any way. And then when they kind of did these outsourcing projects with Reich knives in China, it was kind of a turnoff, and I wasn't the only person that thought that. And so I kind of got out of them for a while, and then I got back into them this past year here, and I've had several come through. I've had the MSI, all three of the Ramlock models that they currently have, the MSI, the Stitch Ramlock, and we'll talk a little bit about the Stitch versus this one, but I do have a video comparing the Stitch and the Auto that I'll go ahead, and if I remember to, I'll link it in the description. And also the Amphibian, of course, which the Amphibian was really one of my favorite knives this year that I picked up. I mean, it came out in 2023, so I couldn't call it like a best of 2024 as far as releases go. But the Amphibian was a knife that I still have, I still enjoy a lot. I could see myself having another one of those in the collection. So yeah, the Ramlocks came out in force this year. I still only have the Amphibian, but I've had a few, actually I've had 4 this year total. This would be the 4th one of the Auto Stitches. I did sell 2. I sold the Apocalyptic Clear Coat, Plain Edge, not serrated, and then I sold the Signature Series Shadow Edition that was full serrated. As much as I like that knife, and part of me really wants to get a full serrated Stitch again, I just, EDCing a fully serrated blade is just not something that I do. It's too specialized for me. I know a serrated blade can do all the tasks or most of the tasks that a unserrated blade can do. In some tasks it'll perform even better, but for my needs, I mean, a lot of times with a knife like this, it's total overkill for what I'm actually using it for. You know, I mean, the only thing I may do with it is like open a package in a day, any given day, maybe like open a package or, you know, peel an apple, you know. So a fully serrated blade is just not really what I need. So as much as I would like to have one of those, I have a hard time justifying it financially to have one of those, because I would definitely have to have a backup knife as well. But yeah, and also, of course, got the other auto stitch that I have right here, which is the Urban Camo. This one I've carried quite a bit this year. I do like the Urban Camo quite a lot. Comparing these, the Urban Camo with the Arctic Camo, I'm wondering, this is a little snappier, and I've had it longer, and I wonder if it's just worn in a little bit more. It's snappier than the new Arctic Camo is. I even took this apart because I did notice it, and it was quite different. And I noticed it over the weekend. And I actually took it apart because I was like, well, maybe it's the Cerakote. The Cerakote does seem a little thicker on this one than it does on the Urban Camo. And so I was like, maybe the Cerakote is rubbing against the inside of the scales. And I took it apart, and just FYI, Microtech likes their Loctite. They use I don't know if it's red Loctite, but they use pretty strong stuff. So you're going to need to apply some heat, or you're going to risk marring up your pivot. Now, I didn't mar up my pivot. I just got some very hot water, you know, from our espresso maker, and just put it in a cup, and I just soaked this in the cup for, you know, just put it in the cup like that for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes. And then I used, I think it's a T20 that goes in there, and I was able to get it out no problem. So I took it apart, and yeah, silly me, what I was getting to, silly me, there is no coating that would be rubbing against the inside of the scale, because these knives don't use washers. They're in direct contact with the aluminum scales. Okay, so as you can see right there, right here, that little bit of unpainted, that shiny part right there, they don't even coat the internals of the blade, or the contact points of the blade that you don't see here. So that wasn't it. So I wonder if it just needs to break in a little bit more, or it could just be a different spring strength. I mean, this one is a 2024, so this is February 2024. This is April 2023. I'll shut up for a second and see if you can tell the difference. It's going to be hard to tell on video how they sound, but listen. Pretty hard to tell, but it is noticeable. It's subtle, but it's noticeable in hand that this one is a little, not quite as snappy as the Urban Camo. So I'm wondering if just over time it will break in a little more nicely. So ideally, now I do have a lanyard on this one as well. Got a cool Olamic bead, which I like. Great company, Olamic. So I kind of just put that on some rawhide right there. So yeah, I would like to get, there's two other versions of the camo that I would like to get. They've got the Coyote, which is almost like a woodlands camo pattern. And then they've got like an olive, which is kind of like a real forest type of camo that I would like to get as well. And if I could get either one of those, because they are hard to find, if I could get either one of those, I would definitely, you know, make some moves and try to get something like that. I'd even consider doing a full serrated or partially serrated on one of those. I don't know if they do partially serrated on those. I think they're either full or plain, and that's it. But yeah, I think it would be cool just to kind of round out the collection. I mean, I do carry and use this one, and if I got the others, I would certainly be carrying those as well. I mean, I've been carrying this one, you know, for the past few days, all weekend, and you know, I've got this one in the pocket today. So I really do enjoy these. I prefer the auto over the Ramlock, the manual stitch. Now, I think Microtech releasing the manual and doing it as a Ramlock was a great business move, and it's been very popular, and I think for good reason. However, just the ergos on the manual for the stitch, I just really don't care for them. I really prefer the ergos on the auto version better. So with the manual, you have a wider finger choil right there, much wider. It'll go pretty much to where this choil is here. and it looks off to me. It just doesn't look right. It's too big. Even though you have the same amount of usable blade, which, as a sidebar, is comically small for a knife this size. It's about a 3 inches worth of usable blade for a 5.5 inch handle. This is not. I'll get to that, but it's comically small for how large the knife is overall to only have a 3 inch cutting edge on this. But I digress. The choil on the the manual version, the ram lock, just is too big for me. It seems weird. It looks wonky, and it doesn't feel right. For me, and I'm going to put this out, maybe Microtech will see this. They probably heard this before, but the ultimate manual Microtech for me would be this exact type of, well, at least construction, maybe not this configuration, but this exact type of construction, but made as a button lock that you could just flick out using this vestigial hole right here that serves no purpose in the manual, or the auto version, I should say. That would be freaking awesome. You could even do a version with thumb studs, and they could lock right there, something like that. They can come out and they could just kind of bam, go like that. I don't know, I'm not a knife designer, but that would be super sweet. And just to have it be a manual version where it would just boop and you drop shut, and you just be able to close it like that by using the button right there. Just bing, close it, be done with it. That would be a stitch, a manual stitch that I could definitely get behind. As it stands right now, I absolutely prefer the auto from an ergonomic standpoint, from a look standpoint. I just think it's better all the way around. I think it's just a superior design. I really do. I think some knives for me at least, in my mind, the manual, or the auto rather, is just a more pure form of the stitch platform. I mean, I just like it. I like it better. So that's kind of where I stand with that. So yeah, I really like the stitch. 2024 has brought some interesting changes in my collecting and my use and my philosophy around knives. I've kind of become a fan of lanyards and beads and things like that, which I never was before, but I've really kind of been turned on to those this year for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just to change things up. I like them on some knives, others I don't. Clearly I do on the stitch. This lanyard with bead is going to stay right here. I'm not going to change that. Another thing I've really come to appreciate is aluminum scales on knives. Something I'd never liked before. I didn't hate it, but I always kind of looked at it like, aluminum scales, kind of chintzy. They should be titanium and everything else, but I really have come around to aluminum scales in 2024. They've really appealed to me a lot more. For a knife that's not a frame lock folder, a knife such as this and out the fronts and anything that's really, unless it's a frame lock folder, I think aluminum's a great choice. I mean, you save on weight, it's plenty durable. Certainly for a frame lock knife, you're going to want to have a titanium lock bar and things like that, but man, for knives like this, I think aluminum's fantastic. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's plenty durable, plenty strong, and I think it suits a lot of knives just fine. So that's just a couple of things right there. Let me see, was there something else I was going to get to? Oh, credit to Microtech once again. I have to give Microtech credit this year. I think they've done a lot of great things across their line. They've had some new releases on the out the front autos, the OTFs, where they have that zero blade play. I'm not going to jump on that right away. Maybe I'll check one out at some point. I think they're too expensive right now, but I know they're starting to release in their regular models. Well, at least that initial release with Surefire, that was way too expensive. Way more money than I was going to be willing to pay on something like that. But I think as that technology trickles down the line, maybe I'll pick up another Combat Troodon with that zero blade play when those come out, as I'm sure they will at some point. But Microtech, they've consistently, and I've said this in other videos, they're consistently putting out knives with sharp factory edges and even grinds. And even that really can't be discounted enough, having even grinds, because a lot of my favorite companies, they've been falling off a little bit in that department. Medford was always really consistent with grinds and sharpness. Their sharpness has gotten less consistent lately, and really a worse thing that's happened is they've gotten more inconsistent with their grinds. They're not as even as they used to be. They used to be dead nuts even, and now they're not. So that, and it's not every knife, but I've noticed it when I never noticed that before. And it comes across when you're sharpening in a fixed angle system like a KME or a Wicked Edge or a TS Prof, something like that. That's really going to be exposed, and I found that a couple times this year with Medford. So they're getting less consistent. Spyderco, I mean, if you get a Spyderco knife that's evenly ground from the factory, go ahead and buy a lottery ticket, man, because that just doesn't happen very often. So they're some of the worst offenders. So Microtech, props to them for consistently delivering a sharp factory edge, impressively sharp, because one of the first things I want to do is resharpen a new knife. And put my edge on it. But yeah, impressively sharp knives and even grinds. They've been doing that. And then lastly, with Microtech, I have noticed that Microtechs don't really go on sale, not to any real degree, but their Chinese collaborations have been, which I just think is funny. So maybe Microtech will get away from the whole Reich partnership and just focus on the American-made goodness that people really want. People want American-made Microtech knives. I think, I'm not saying their Reich knives aren't nice. I'm sure functionally they're great too. But there's something about, when you say Microtech, you want an American-made knife. You want a knife that's been made in the United States. You don't want a Chinese version. You just don't. I think it's as simple as that. So maybe 2025 we'll see Microtech going back to solely U.S. production, no more collaborations, because those knives are now on sale. Which also goes to show you the type of profit margins they have for Chinese-made knives, because they can make them a lot cheaper over there than they can over here. But in any case, if you're still watching, I certainly do appreciate it. Do consider subscribing to the channel. I certainly would appreciate that as well. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think of this one. Anything that's on your mind, your favorite knives of 2024, Microtech Stitch, anything like that. And stay tuned for the next one, y'all. Appreciate it. Peace.